Anyhow, I just want to say welcome and thank you very much for coming. It's been a bit hectic organising this reunion, but originally I thought we'd have a small gathering for 25 people who live in Christchurch. We've got 60 people as they all arrive, and they're coming from all over New Zealand, from people from Invercargill, people from Auckland, people from Nelson, Rangiora, Timaru, Ashburton, Wanaka. So they made a great effort to be here. It's really
Mexico.
wonderful. Thank you. And
Mexico.
I know, I was just saying and. And we've got two come all the way from Mexico. And later on they're going to help with the food, so I'm very grateful for that. This is Martin Hardacre and Eric Del Rio Gonzalez from Mexico, and they run a food business there, so they've kindly volunteered to help us with the food later on. So that's very great. Now, firstly, I won't hold you up too long, but I want to get moving. I should say that a few people did register and they were going to be here, but at the last minute they've had to cancel. There's Ivan Hadley. I'm going in the order on that original sheet I sent out of all the people attending. Raylene Mekia from Timaru, Nee Lumsden, Ken Lois Richardson from Invercargill, Skylar Orr from Auckland, Leslie Carswell, who just phoned me yesterday. She's 98 and a half, so she just couldn't get along here today. So apologies from her and her son and daughter-in-law. And there's other people who didn't register. They live out of town and weren't going to be coming here, but I'll put an apology in. This is in the order of their family. So there's Jill Kennedy from Dunedin and Sally Duffy from Dunedin, Cynthia Wensley from Auckland, Winston Wensley from Taupo, Shona Richardson from Invercargill, and her daughter Jocelyn O'Donnell and husband Scott O'Donnell. They're at a wedding in Queenstown today. And I think that's all the apologies I want to mention. Right, now, as I said, I want people, if they volunteer already, come up here and talk a little bit about themselves and their family, but I'll try and give you a quick rundown on myself in 3 minutes, and I'll let everyone else have up for 5 minutes. So, I'm Alan Tunnicliffe and I am 72 years old. I just turned 72 3 days before Christmas. I'm the elder of 3 children of my mother, Novena Nee Wensley, and her mother was Gladys Nee Lumsden. And I remember from when I was very young, my grandmother was still alive then, and my mother told me that my grandmother's grandfather was a man called George Lumsden in Invercargill, so I knew a bit about the history when I was a child. And when I was 19 years old, which was 52 and a half years ago, I started getting interested in the family history because I saw a picture of a man in a book who was George Lumsden, who's the great-great-grandfather of nearly everybody here, or a different time of greats. So I really got interested in it, and I'm still doing a bit of family history 52 and a half years later. My mother organised the first Lumsden family reunion. This is the second, and that was held in February 1976 in the town of Lumsden, which was named after George, our ancestor, in 1876. So it was 100 years later we had the reunion there. And since then I've lived in Invercargill and mainly in Christchurch, and I retired when I was 58, 2 weeks before my 59th birthday, and I've been doing more family history research in my retirement. And my other hobby is stamp collecting. I've never married, so I've got no descendants. I've got a younger brother who lives in England, who's married but has no family, and I've got a younger sister who lives overseas too. So my mother hasn't got any descendants. She died in 1993. So I think that's long enough for me, apart from the fact that I followed my father into the teaching profession. I gave that up when I was 30 years old and went to work for another government department called Lands and Survey. So that's the end of my life story. Right, now the next people to speak I want them to go in the order, but unfortunately, fortunately, the first person on the list is the only person who was born in Lumsden and has that name, and his brother's offspring and next generation will carry on the name. So it's almost died out and not quite. So would you mind coming up now, please, Lindsay? Is that all right with you? And give 5 minutes about yourself or less, if you like.
Well, I'm totally unprepared for this actually, because I'm learning a bit of history and genealogy from Alan. I see some photographs over there, and I see my mother is over there, my father, and the reunion you had in Lumsden. I do understand your, if we get this right, my auntie Lillian is your godmother.
My mother's godmother.
My mother's godmother. I don't get all the facts right. But it's my honour, really, to be here, to be quite honest, because Alan said that I'd be the only Lumsden, which is odd. It seems strange to me that we have a reunion by Lumsden, I'm the only one here to have a reunion by myself. But I understand we're all sort of blood related, which is amazing. But anyway, I'm the son of Lindsay Eric Lumsden. You can find it in the family tree over there. And I'm my grandfather was George Thomas Lumsden, and his father was Thomas James Lumsden. Is that correct? And then you go to George Lumsden. So it sort of follows down through that one. I've got two sons. One is called Mark Lindsay. The family name is there, and I see there's some Marks in here as well, which is fascinating. I've got a brother, John Lumsden. He lives in Christchurch, and I don't know why he's not here. I've never asked him, so. But he has a couple. He has one son. Who lives in Christchurch, and John, also I see there's a John Lindsay in this down here as well, so that's interesting to have that sort of relationship there as well. So that's about all I can say. If there's any questions you want to ask me, but my auntie was Auntie Doris, and Auntie Lillian, and Auntie Jean, and who else was it? That's right.
There's a photo of your Auntie G over there when she's a little tiny girl.
Yes, I must take a photo of that. I remember the four of them. Three of them. G, Doris. Auntie Lillian, Auntie Doris, and Auntie G. There's three sisters, that's right. Yeah. And so the Lumsden name will continue. It's getting a bit dying out a wee bit, but there's Mark. Who else? I should have finished, shouldn't I? Chris, my son, he doesn't have any children yet. So we have 4 children, and so that's about all I can say about my side of things. So it's nice to be here, and thank you for inviting me, Alan.
Thank you, that's great. Right, well, next on the list would be David Pennington, but he hasn't turned up, I'm afraid. So we'll carry on with the rest of the family in order. The next one is John Lumsden MacDonald. I'll put his middle name in.
Good afternoon, everybody, and Alan, thank you very much for organising this. I think everybody appreciates it. I know I do. I'm John MacDonald. My mother was Betty Lumsden, sister of Muriel, Claire, and Nairi. It's nice to see a lot of names here that I heard my parents talk about. I being young, you didn't bother going and visiting your rallies when you were younger. Nowadays, I wish I had it, one of those things. I'm here with my two sisters, Nan and Claire, and my brother Ken somewhere hiding over there.
John, I think we should all stand up so they know who's who. This is Claire.
Yeah, Claire.
I'm Nan.
And my daughter Gillian. You can stand up too. Thank you, dear.
And Diane, my daughter Diane.
Diane is Claire's daughter.
And we've got Tracy here oh no, wrong one, sorry.
No, that's all of their blood.
So, yeah, I don't know as much else that I can tell you. We lived around in Chicago area until Mum and Dad moved up to Christchurch, and I followed a few years later. Nan lives in Wanaka, Claire lives in Chicago, Ken lives up here out of Christchurch, Lincoln Way. But one thing is that when my mother went to get a passport, she found out her name wasn't Betty, it's actually Bessie, B-E-S-S-I-E. I'm wondering if her old man, I think it was Tom, one of them, yeah, he probably, would be right, if he wrote in script, S's and T's could look very much alike in those days. Would that be logical? I think that he's written it as S's, his T's could have finished up looking rather like S's, and they've transposed it. So that,
You don't think he was drinking a wee bit, John?
well, if he's like the rest of us, he could well have. Yeah, so that's about all that I've got in the family history that I think that you would like it.
Thanks, John. There's several other people got Lumsden in their name, but next we got Claire.
Hang on, no, you.
Yes, just very briefly.
We're going in order of the family.
Yeah, just very briefly, I will speak.
Thanks, John. Okay.
Well, I'm one of his sisters, Claire, and I would just like to say too that through 6 generations, either my mother or I, we have all worked in jewellers, and I still have a son and grandson who are manufacturing jewellers. So it is still going down in the family. There is a connection with the jewellery. So that was my main part. I've got 3 children myself. Marie, who's in Blenheim, Diane, who's with me, and Tony. He is a jeweller in Blenheim now. He did his training in Chicago, and he is in Blenheim. But I have 3 great-grandsons of the one of my grandson who is a jeweller, and I'm hoping they will carry on the tradition. So we have got somebody in the family who is still in jewellery, and it's gone down from George, Tom. My mother was in the shop, I was in Rains Jewellers. My son trained in Chicago. He's now, well, he's in Christchurch a number of years at Landau's, doing manufacturing there, and he does his own business in Blenheim. And my grandson is in Scout Jewellers in Chicago. His father owns Scouts. So we've still got the jewellery in the family. Thank you.
Talk, Diane. Do you want to talk, Diane?
Yeah, I can.
Your turn if you come over here. Thanks.
I do.
Capture
I'm
the-
Diane, obviously Claire's daughter. I'm not very good at speeches and I've prepared nothing, but I can just say that I remember going to Lumsden reunion when I was knee-high to a grasshopper. Now I was very upset because I was not allowed on the horse flight. It was the only eldest child. And I mentioned to that mum on the way up, and mum says, I never knew that, you know, and I said, well, I must have been knee-high to a grasshopper. And today I found out just with your announcement, I was 10. So I still remember that from when I was 10. We have got 6 generation jewellers. I name it 7 when I'm telling people that I've got 7 generation jewellers because my father was a jeweller. So I actually tell people I've got 7 generation jewellers, which is a wee white lie, but it's a nice one. Now, there has to be a black sheep in the family. My sister married a jeweller, my brother's a jeweller, and I'm the truck driver. I drive around, I've got 11 endorsements and drive big trucks around. I can tow loaders and drive diggers and all sorts of things. So it's really lovely to be back, and I do remember some faces from my younger years, and it's nice to see you all here again today. So, not to mention I have a 33-year-old son, no grandchildren.
Hi, I'm Nan. I'm probably the black sheep too. Yeah, the third child of Betty, and we have a younger brother, Ken. Yeah, I worked in radio and then married boy and became a farmer's wife, which I loved. And we retired to Wanaka about 20 years ago. And we've done various things since then. But I just wanted to say, apart from really enjoying this, Abby, thank you very much for all your hard work. I have 2 jewellery cases here that have George Lumsden inside them, and I'll put them on the table down the back. I'm not sure if there are some or not.
You got those off me.
I got them off my mother.
I've got one of those at home as well.
Well, I thought I'd just bring it so you could see. When we went to Scotland, we went to Pittenweem, where the Lumsdens were, and went to a shop called Lumsden Antiques. And there was a gentleman there that said he wasn't a direct relation, but connected. And he suggested we go to Anstruther, which was sort of just over the hill away, and I forgot to bring it, but he went in there for a little information thing, and right at the start at the front was James Smith and George Lumsden were the jewellers in this area, and I forgot to bring it up to show you. I'm sorry, but they may still have it for you. Thank you.
Can I just be rude and mention something else?
If you come over here so the camera can see you and hear you.
I forgot to mention in speech that when I was road marking many a year ago, I can't even give you a year, there's a gentleman by the name of John Husband. I'm sure some of you would have heard that name. He's a radio announcer. And I was listening to the radio and he was after information on George Lumsden. At that stage I did have a copy of the short biography. I've given it to him and it is published in a book. So it's John Husband is the author. And I know it's published in this book, and I haven't been able to track it down. And I do know that John Husband's living in Riverton at the moment. So if anyone wants to try and track down that book on the information, I just thought that was a little bit of useful.
Is that John Husband, the artist?
Yes.
He's not at all well, so I'm not sure if you would.
I don't know. I've looked up the book online, but I haven't been able to find it. So we may need to get onto it sooner than later. But it's just so you know that I did get it out there in the public in this book. Yeah. Thank you very much. Sorry about that.
Your turn, Ken.
Oh, great. Well, obviously I'm Ken, the youngest one of the other 3. I'm married, coming on 66. Other than that, I'm not a big fan of following families. I recognise a lot of my names, which is interesting, but I don't go out my way to track it like my brothers and sisters. But it is interesting to see everyone here, and other than that, I haven't got much else to add. So, as I say, that's better.
That clock that's in the Anstruther Museum, that was mentioned, there's a very lovely colour postcard of it in the bottom left-hand corner, that big display on the piano. So if you go and have a look at that later. Okay, next up is Jane King.
Thanks, Alan. I'm so glad to be here. I've always been interested in our family history, and thanks to my mum, Claire Greenwood, nee Lumsden, I have got quite a wee display down there. There's 2 jewellery boxes of hers. They're rather tatty looking, but they've still got the George Lumsden name on it. I had an elder brother, Ken, who died in 2011 at the age of 73, I think. He was 11 years older than me, and I'm the baby of the afterthought or a mistake or whatever it was. I've been married twice. My second husband is here. I've got 4 children. Tracy's the eldest. Then there's John, the girl. John works in Mitre 10 in Sydenham, but he had to work today because they are open. Then I had another son, Justin, who died 2 years ago from bowel and liver cancer. And my baby is Melanie, who was the baby at the reunion. She was 10 months old then and received a nice egg cut from your mother, which I still have. And that's about it, I think. Yeah, can't do anything else.
Thanks very much, Tracy. Tracy, do you want to speak or not?
You can do it.
Hi, I really don't have anything to say.
Tell us about yourself. You used to be,
I'm not married, I don't have any children.
used to ride horses.
Yeah, I've raced harness racing horses up until last year actually. I was employed by Hilton Haulage and my horse ran me over and I have a head injury from it, which is probably why I'm a bit emotional right now. I'm okay, don't worry, I'm not going to start brandishing an AK-47 or something. Yeah, I love following the family history and I'd like to do my dad's side of the family. Well, not myself, I'd like to see someone do it because I don't know where to start. It's really great to see everyone here and it's important to remember our history and where we come from. And I was at the reunion back in '76 and my main memory from it was really cold that day and I was quite miserable. So thanks to everyone and
Thank you.
yeah, thanks.
Right, Stephanie, your next, please.
Sorry, I haven't heard anything. My mum's Nairi. She was the youngest of the family, and our uncle Ken, he hasn't been mentioned except his name is up there. He was killed in a car accident when he was 24, I think he was 24. The car was going over a bridge and then it went down a bank and he thought he would jump out to save himself, but he was the only one that was killed. The car landed on him and my grandparents got a phone call from the hospital to say that Ken was in hospital and they expected to see him, but I'm afraid it was just a body that they went to see, and apparently from then on they always set a place at the table for him. I think, John, do you remember that story? Or, I'm sure they did. He was engaged to a lovely lady who still kept in contact with the family. Yeah, so anyway, my dad was in broadcasting, so we moved around a bit, so we sort of lost a lot of contact with family. And I've finished up in Christchurch, but now, yeah, so I'm married, my husband's there, and I've got two of my youngest and my eldest, Hayden and Jonathan, with Angela, who is Jonathan's wife, and we've got my grandson, who is Jonathan's eldest, and his fiancée, so they'll very kindly come today as well. So I really haven't got too much to add, but I did bring something which I find fascinating. Mum used to do pearl rethreading, and after she passed away in 2002, I finished up with a lot of stuff. Oh, by the way, I have a brother, Murray, too. Sorry. But anyway, I just remember these things as they come. I just thought you might be fascinated to see these. I found these in Mum's her pearl rethreading box. And I didn't have a clue what they were, because sometimes with jewellers they can also be optometrists or something, I think. Someone can correct me on that one. But we've got a friend who's an optometrist, and I showed them to him, and he said that they're the glasses that they used to wear, and obviously there was glass in them. There's another one here as well.
I could have done with them, Stephanie, and I did read through them.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's not in here. There's one, there's this wee one here as well. That goes round the ear and he puts them on. And apparently when they wore out and the glass came out, they used to put these in a box, and a guy would come round every now and again and collect them because they're 14 karat gold, and apparently he got so much by weight he was paid for them, and they got melted down to get the gold off them. So I just thought you might be interested in that. They belong to George Lumsden, because this George Lumsden jeweller and optician in Invercargill written on the top. So that was just a little bit of interest. I think it's Daryl.
Thank you,
Thank
Stephanie.
you.
I just apologise because I forgot to put an apology for Stephanie's brother, Murray Woodward, who's actually at work today. And yes, he couldn't be here, otherwise he would have been. Now, the rest of the Crocker, this is all the Crocker family here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Would any of those like to speak, please? How about you, Jonathan?
Don't really have a lot to say, I'm actually.
You're going to get up and be recorded on the camera anyhow.
I'm Jonathan Crocker, Stephanie's oldest son, and yeah, I don't really know much about the family, to be honest, apart from what we've learned along the way. My grandma and granddad. Yeah, apart from, I'm all ears listening to whatever else you've got to say. And thanks for having us along, and I'll just sit back down and listen in. I don't really have much to add. Thank you very much.
Stephanie didn't mention, but her father, Roy Woodward, was one of the very first announcers on TV well over 50 years ago, wasn't he? You might remember Roy Woodward reading the news on early days of black and white TV. It'd be good if people told us a little bit more about themselves, like where they live, what their job is or was. Okay, we'll move down the line. Cameron. Just do what I said.
I'm Cameron, I'm Jonathan's son, Stephanie's grandson. I've lived in Christchurch all my life. I work in parts sales for commercial stuff, but apart from that, I don't know any more family history than what Nana's sort of filled us in on. And I don't really have much more to say. That's all.
Thank you. How about Hayden?
I'm probably the same, but it's not. Obviously, I'm the youngest from Stephanie and Leighton. We've got another brother, Julian, as well, that isn't here today. He lives up in Nelson. I'm an operations manager for a sheet metal company in town. I'm married with 3 kids. We live in Wollaston. Lived in Auckland for 7 years, so quite a few years ago. But yeah, that's probably about what I've got. And in terms of the family, it's probably about what Mum and Dad have told us and what we've learned through grandparents. So thanks very much for organising that. I appreciate it.
Right, all those people there were descendants of Thomas Lumsden Jr. So we'll now move on to the next child in the family, which was the eldest daughter of Tom and Mary, and that was Violet Hatherley. And we have Violet's granddaughter here today. Diane, would you like to speak, please?
My name is Diane, and I'm Diane Sommier, and my husband's here with me, and he's Hungarian, and you notice it's spelled S-O-M-L-A-Y. He pronounces it Sommier. But for New Zealanders, we use Sommier, and I'm a teacher, so I have to have a name that can be pronounced. So I teach at Hillview Christian School. I've been there for 15 years, and I was at Albert School before that, and that was the school that my father went to first. And his name was Lawrence, so I don't know if anyone knows Lawrence, but I think people will know my grandparents more than their children, because I'm the only one from Violet's family. So I really wanted to come so I could represent them. I have 4 brothers and sisters. I've got an older brother, Ivan, but he couldn't come today. And I've got a brother in Sydney, who's called Bruce, and a brother in Christchurch, Peter, and a sister in Waiheke Island, who is called Jenny Lynn, but she calls herself Jenny most of the time. Now, my father has made a beautiful family history, and I went through it when I got the list from Alan, and I thought, oh gosh, this is quite complicated. And so I thought, I will, my father had written down a lot of history, so I'll just pick little bits of it, just to tell you, so in case you know some of these people. Violet was born in Invercargill on the 20th of April 1881. She was the oldest daughter of Thomas James Lumsden and Mary Lumsden nee McNatty. She had 5 brothers, Thomas, George, Robert, Lance and David, and 3 sisters, Daisy, Gladys and Irene. Does anyone know any of those?
Yeah.
Well, I know, I have met some people today that know Violet's house, so I will bring that in. Now, Dolly got some extracts from my Auntie Molly, who was their oldest child, and about Violet went to her grandparents, George and Christina Lumsden's place. So, is there anyone that knows George and Christina Lumsden? No. Oh, well, she used to go there every Sunday, and each time she was given a coin, and another member of her family always went with her, taking turns each week. That's what she did on Sundays. And she loved music, so the music has gone through the family. She sang in choirs and went to Charles Gray's singing classes. She was a soloist at the first church choir concert in 1905. So my Auntie Molly told Dad this, and he wrote it down, you see, and because she was, Auntie Molly was a great singer, and she taught singing at their house for quite some years. So she lived in Invercargill until she was 22, and she went to Napier for a year or so, staying with her Auntie Minnie. So is there anyone who knows who Auntie Minnie is?
McNabb.
Hmm?
She was a McNabb.
Ah, so you've got to fill me in with that. And then she stayed, later she came up to Christchurch, where she stayed at Huntsbury Hill with the Roger family, and she met my grandfather, Edwin, and they were married in Invercargill on the 21st of August in 1912. So that Dad got information of all the houses they were in, but I won't go through them. She first was in Portland Street, and in 1914 they built their own house in Westminster Street and Mayfield Avenue. And Betty, Jean and Margaret, they were the first 3 children, were born there. And they lived very close to St Albans Baptist Church, where many of the family were involved in singing in the choir, and some of the girls were teaching Sunday school. And this is the part that some people might know. In 1925, the year after my dad Lawrence was born, on the 21st of November 1924, Ned bought a property at 9 Strohan Road, which is on the corner of Glendoby Road, and where they lived for nearly 50 years. And some people have told me that they have visited the place, and I have, and my family have great memories of that place. It was a perfect place for a growing family. It was a beautiful wooden house with 4 large bedrooms and a covered veranda around the side, and it had a really large section with the Wairarapa River going right round, and they had everything for children, lots of lawns to play on, and there was a huge fir trees that we tried to climb at the by the river, beside the river at Papa Park. And there was an orchard on the side of the house with a huge nut tree at the back. It was enormous. I've never seen one quite so big. So we were never short of walnuts. And when we went, when we children went, we enjoyed playing in the bamboo. They had bamboo down the river. We made huts, and we played hide and seek. We just were able to use our imaginations and having that great place. And we would eat fruit and have delicious biscuits and cakes from the tins in the pantry, and always have a glass of lemonade each. They were still living in Strohan Road, my grandparents, until I went at 50 years ago. So, and they died there. And Violet was 84 and Ned was 90. So then two of my aunties lived together. They were single, and they lived together in Glendowie Road, and they found a house there. And we lived just round the corner. And Auntie Margaret, my auntie, she had 5 children, and she lived round the corner on the other side of it, and they were sort of in the middle. So we kept in touch with the family for a long time. And even Betty lived close. She was in Featherton. And,
was that Betty Neal, was it?
Betty Neal.
Yes, I remember her. My mother and her were quite close and friends, and she used to visit Mum in Riccarton.
Yes, she was in Riccarton, Carver Road.
I do remember her.
She had a house right beside the Riccarton Market.
Yeah, the river.
By the river. And that was a beautiful city.
We used to go there too. The Kilkrees, we used to go there with Mum.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, we loved going visiting there too. It was really lovely place. And that lovely view over to that forest. So the family were very close, the sisters. All my husband's saying, oh, well, no, but I've really enjoyed looking this up. And I'm going to follow up. My father, Lawrence, has made a book of pages and pages he's done. He's worked so hard, and I don't want to let him down. He has now died. I don't want to let him down and not finish it all. So I want to find out as much. That's one of the main reasons I came, because I wanted to think, I'd like to know the people that he's written in the book and the families. So I'm learning a lot already. So thank you.
Got another apology. I forgot 2 other people who would like to have been here. Diane's aunt Margaret, Mrs. Annand, her 2 sons, Richard and Andrew, who do live in Canterbury, couldn't be here today either. So sorry about forgetting that. And I do remember Diane's grandmother very well, as many of you here will too. That house, that huge house with the walnut tree. We always got walnuts when we visited. And I remember my first memory was meeting this very elderly great aunt of mine, who gave me, when I left, after I'd drunk the lemonade and eaten the cakes, she actually gave me either a florin or a half crown, which was the most money I'd ever seen in my life. So I loved going to see Auntie Violet. Okay, after Diane, the next person on the list, we move on now to the descendants of Lance Lumsden. And unfortunately, as I mentioned before, Raylene Messier, who was born in Lumsden, daughter of Ray Lumsden, couldn't be here today, but we have got her Auntie Marjorie's granddaughter. Isabel, can you come and speak and bring your grandson Fletcher Reid with you? Thanks. So this is Lance Lumsden's daughter's son's daughter.
Hi, I'm Isabel G. Oh, that's the table. This is Fletcher Reid. Fletcher's my grandson. So I'm the eldest daughter of David Smelly, who is the eldest son of Marjorie Smelly, who is the daughter, I don't know where Grandma Smelly comes in, but the daughter of Ethel Lumsden, and I don't even know Grandad Lumsden's name. So I was born in Otaudale. I'm the eldest of 4, and then have 2 half-sisters as well, or 5. It's kind of hard. So the one next to me passed away at 6 months old, and then I have a brother in Australia, and Nick, my youngest brother, is here with us today. So I was born in Aotearoa, and we lived, and my father David did sheep farming there, and then when I was 10 years old, my mum and us children moved to Goa, and pretty much sort of then didn't have a lot of connection with the family, so don't know much about the family tree or the family history. I'm really, really fortunate because my dad's sister, Auntie Barbara Waters, kept in contact with us all the time, and I kept in contact with Grandma Smalley a lot, and I remember visiting Grandma Lumsden at the home in Invercargill. I remember going to visit Grandma Smalley until I was 10, and Grandma Lumsden lived with her for quite a long time. I was just saying to Nan, I remember having it was either cabbage or silver beet at Grandma Smalley's, and Grandma Lumsden had washed it that day, and I got half a slug in mine. So it was always a standing joke, where was the other half? But yeah, there's lots of happy memories from when I was a child. And as I said, Auntie Barbara kept us in contact with the history. Her and my mother are very good friends, and Mum's a history sort of family buff as well. I think Nick's taken it up and has been looking into that as well. So yeah, I have 2 children. Fletcher's mother Yasmin, who's 22, and Uncle Keegan, who is 19, coming 20, and I'm married to Warren. I think that's probably about it for me. I don't,
Did you used to travel around with your family in a bus on holidays?
That was Auntie Barbara.
Remember?
Yeah, so Auntie Barbara and Uncle Lex. So a little bit about them is that Auntie Barbara was a nurse most of her life, I think all of her life. Uncle Lex into machinery farming. I remember them farming and they just went everywhere and that. But they eventually moved to Australia and did a lot of fruit picking and moving around in a bus and a huge caravan over there. I loved it. Uncle Lex passed away a few years ago, and Jimmy, their eldest, is in Bundaberg in Australia. Auntie Barbara lives over in the same town in Australia. Sandy lives in Hamner Springs with her husband. She got 2 or 3 boys. 2 boys, yeah. And I know that in the photos that Jimmy and Sandra are in the last reunion photo. But yes. Then in Australia, also in Brisbane, is Auntie Marion's youngest daughter, Yvette, remarried, I can't remember her last name, and then there's Sharon, so they were paying. They were, so I don't know where our cousins are from, immediate cousins. Pretty much.
I seem to continue to be making apologies. I have to do it again. I should have said this at the very start. The idea for this reunion came in September, and I got an email from Isabel's auntie Barbara, Mrs. Waters, in Bundaberg in Queensland, saying, I'd like to come over to New Zealand in 2020 and have a family get-together. Can you organise it for me? And the sad part about it is Barbara couldn't be with us today. She's got very serious health problems. But it was her idea. Otherwise we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for Barbara. The other thing I want to say was I got very fond memories of visiting Isabel's grandmother's farm. That's Marjorie and Jim Smalley at Otautau. And the other thing is, when Isabel mentioned Grandma Lumsden, she really meant great-grandma Lumsden.
Oh, she did too.
Many of you might remember Lance Lumsden's widow was called Ethel, and she was a widow for many, many years because she died at age 107 in Invercargill. She at that time was one of the oldest people in the whole of New Zealand, and the latter part of her life she spent living with her various offspring. So she spent a lot of time living in Christchurch with the Holland family. You'll hear about that later, I hope. And she lived with Marge Smelly, as Isabel said. And of course, a lot of you will remember Auntie Ethel, as we called her. She's really a great Auntie Ethel. Okay, we'll move on next to Isabel's brother. Nick James is here. Where are you, Nick?
I'm still here.
Thanks, Nick, for coming.
So my name's, well, I was Smelly, but then after my parents got divorced and my dad's new wife made him change his last name from Smelly to Smiley, and then my grandmother do the same thing. So on their headstones it's got Smelly and Smiley on there. So yeah, as I said, after they got divorced and then my sister got remarried, my older brother lives in Australia and he'd gotten into some trouble, so he had to change his name by deed poll to our father's, stepfather's last name. So I was actually the last one left, and I didn't really have any connection at all with my stepfather or with Dad's family once they changed their name. So I actually dropped my last name altogether. Yeah, sorry, Dad had passed away by then as well. So I changed my last name and I actually dropped it altogether, and so changed my name to James, which is my middle name. So if you've seen that James on anything, that was my middle name was James, and that runs on both sides of the families and my mum's side as well. That James is a pretty common name. So yeah, so that's me. As my sister said, that we've got an older brother that lives in Australia, and he's got 3 kids as well. Those 3 children, one of them lives in Wellington, and the other 2 still live in Australia. Auntie Barbara lives in Australia as well, and she's kind of like a grandma to them because my mum's still here. So Alan mentioned about Auntie Barbara, and I guess for us growing up, if it hadn't been for Auntie Barbara, we wouldn't have known anything at all. So she actually worked across the road from where we lived, and she used to sneak over in the morning and have coffee with my mum because of Dad's new wife, and they found out that she'd been seeing us, he was going to stop Grandma, so Marjorie, from actually seeing us grandchildren. So yeah, so Auntie Barbara has really kept us together. She and my mum still contact each other. I've taken my mum to Australia a couple of times to visit Auntie Barbara. Yeah, so for us, especially because Auntie Marion died just before I was born as well, so really on Dad's side of the family, the only connection I ever really had was Auntie Barbara. So yeah, so she's been amazing. And then at my dad's funeral afterwards, I met Cheryl and Pete and their family, which are here today as well, so I kept in contact with them as I was a little bit younger. But I guess I don't have any kids, but for me, family is really important, so I actually started doing a lot of genealogy stuff online, and so did my Ancestry.com, the DNA stuff, so I've gone right back to the Lumsdens that were in 1610. So I've done my side from my mum's side and my grandparents on both sides, but I hadn't got any further with the Lumsdens, so I took it back that little bit further. And it's interesting, I couldn't find anything on a great-grandma Lumsden, so that's Ethel. When I was at school, I was when she turned 107, so it was in the paper, so I'd become a local celebrity that I could tell everybody that, that was my great-grandma. So then trying to explain how was always a little bit difficult. Yeah, so I couldn't find anything else on her. There wasn't anything online. There was her birth notice and her death notice, but there was no names there. But since I've been here today, I've actually found some information on the Nortons as well. So for me, that's great. So I can do the same thing back on the opposite side. So I'm not sure whether people's email addresses are going to be collected or gathered from today, but I'd be interested to hear from other people in the family as well. Thank you.
Nick did mention about email addresses, and I didn't want to let everyone else know everyone else's emails. I've got about 33 of them out of the 60 people that are here. But with your permission, I will, after the reunion, send out a report about it. And unless you tell me otherwise, I will let other people know the email addresses. In other words, I won't send a blind carbon copy to everybody. So if you want to let me know that, that would be great. And just one other thing occurred to me at the very end, in case I forget to say it while I'm standing up. I'd like to get the name tag holders back at the end, because 30 of them belong to me, but I borrowed 30 from a friend. I have to return those, so it'd be good if you could remember to put it on the same table where you pick them up later on. So we'll move on now to the next one in Lumsden's family, Lance and Ethel's children. After Marjorie was Kathy, Mrs. Holland, and the oldest of her grandchildren is here today, and that is Grant.
Now I'm going to pass over here. This is Rachel.
Okay, Grant's next oldest sister out of the two sisters is Rachel.
Well, I was late, so I got the job. But I'm very proud to be here on. Oh God, I'll probably cry. Sorry. On behalf of our mother, Marilyn Kilty, who died just a year ago, and we still don't cope. And we caught up with Uncle Alan at Mum's funeral, which was wonderful. So I've got my older brother Grant, myself, my sister Jenny, who's also Jenny Dunn. So we found out today she's just named after.
Grandma Holland named me.
Yeah.
Kath.
Yes.
Mum's mother.
Yeah, Kath Holland, Kath Lumsden was our mother's mother. So we have fond memories of Kath and our great-grandmother Ethel. Jenny and I used to go down with Mum to Invercargill. Mum has a very fond history of her family, and I have got a lot of information which unfortunately I haven't brung, but hopefully we'll do it again, and I've got lots and lots of things. Mum's got lots of articles. But we used to go and visit Grandma Lumsden when she was at Peacehaven, and obviously she didn't remember much about her everyday life from what was happening at the moment, but she talked a lot about her history from when she was young, so we were fascinated, and we felt a bit like you, Nick, that we were very special that our great-grandmother was 107, along with our cousins. And Grandma Lumsden lived with my grandmother and Mum and Auntie Cheryl when they lived in Christchurch for quite a long time, and I remember Grandma Lumsden had a little chamber pot under her bed. And we always used to say, how did you get to be so old? And she probably was only 70 then. And she'd say, it's all the wheat germ I eat. So Mum's always taught us too. She always ate wheat germ as well. And said, that's the longevity. That's the Lumsden way. So I still buy wheat germ. And Jenny's probably got some memories. I don't know. We've probably got lots of memories, but everyone's got them, so we can catch up with those that are interested. But it's really nice to... We have fond memories of Auntie Barbara. She used to come on the bus, and Lex, and also Raylene and Nairi, Mum's cousins.
Auntie Molly.
And Auntie Molly and the Winsleys.
Uncle Owen.
Yeah, so we're lucky with Mum has kept a lot of contact up for us, and now that Mum and Dad are both gone, we just need to keep on and be part of it. So thank you for organising.
I reckon you just want to add, Rach.
Sorry,
I'm just going to say that Mum was really, really, really family orientated. So everywhere she kept us all together, and she'll be here. She wouldn't be missing out. And she was, we did everything with all of our cousins and all of our family and aunties and uncles, and she just loved it, didn't she? That's all I need to say.
You don't want to say any more, Jenny?
Oh no, I just wanted to say I've got two boys. I'm married to Tony Hedges from Auckland, and I've got Nick and Charlie, and my oldest son Nicholas is Nicholas James Lumsden Hay, so named after the Lumsden side of the family.
Thank you. You're next, Todd, youngest of the four. Thank you.
I'm Todd, Marilyn's youngest. I lived in Christchurch all my life. I bought the house next door to Auntie Molly, which is quite ironic, and I still live there today. I'm 50, single, no one has me. Got a dog, and that's all good. Thank you.
Now, Marilyn's sister Cheryl has passed away. I asked Peter to speak. Cheryl's husband first. Peter Stiles.
I'm the widowed husband of Cheryl, who was Kath Holland's daughter, who Kath was Ethel's daughter. And my memories of Mrs. Lumsden when we moved here in 1975 was visiting her down in Invercargill when she was in Peacehaven in the 90s. And I remember going there one day to visit her, and they said, oh, Mrs. Lumsden's doing some trousers for one of the people that stayed in the home, and here's Ethel. in the dining room with some chap about 100, teetering on the table. She's there got pins in her mouth and she's rolling up the trousers, doing his cuffs. She said, I can't stop, just go away. You know? So I went away and came back about an hour later. Apparently that was her regular thing 2 or 3 days a week. She'd do the trousers for anybody that needed their cuffs done. But we used to talk quite a bit, and then she'd talk about her times, but not having been in the family for long and even lived in Southland, then she'd stop and say, I don't know why I'm telling all these things. You don't even, you're not part of the family. Oh, she said, well, you are, because you're married into it. So I used to come back and tell Cheryl and her sister Marilyn that somebody should be recording her, because the things she talked about at Tautau and the times out there, and obviously her husband Lance, and so like a lot of us, you know, people don't listen to us sometimes, but there's an awful lot written down about her. So I've got my daughters here today, Emily Dally with her son Lachlan in the corner, and Jasmine, and Lucy's our youngest daughter, and she's here, but her daughter's at home with her husband, so they may not get up, or they might. So I'll just thank Alan for organising it. It's been great, and I'm quite interested too, and even though it's not so much my family, the Lumsden name, but it's great to see everybody here. Thank you.
Want to say anything about yourself, Emily? Lucy will.
All right.
Next generation, Cheryl's daughter.
Hi, I'm Lucy, Cheryl's daughter. I've lived in Christchurch all my life. I've got a partner and an 8-year-old daughter. I'm a personal trainer. And Mum, Cheryl, was Marilyn's sister. And we too had fond memories. Mum would tell us lots of stories about family, and just the claim to fame to the town Lumsden, named after the family. So I remember at primary school telling lots of people that Lumsden was named after my great-great-great-grandfather. What else do I have to say? I had fond memories of meeting great-grandmother down in Invercargill. We also were taken down there for a visit. Fond memories of Barbara Waters and holidays with them, and Auntie Anne up in Motueka. Remember, a very, very little girl. So again, it's great to hear a little bit more today about some history. Yeah, thanks again, Alan. It's wonderful. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Right, now that's the end of Lance Lumsden's family, and the next person to be speaking will be Lance Wensley. So we've got another Lance in the family, and he's the oldest grandson of my grandmother, who was Gladys Wensley nee Lumsden.
Well, I'm the oldest of my little family. I've got 2 brothers, one of whom's here. My middle brother, Mark, unfortunately died some years ago. I'd just like to tell you something about my grandmother, Gladys Lumsden. She was, of course, married. My name would be Wensley. She was married to my grandfather, Wensley. And one of the things I can remember or 2 things I can specifically remember, because my grandma, Wensley Lumsden, didn't live all that long because she was a diabetic. And in those days, being a diabetic was very, very serious. And she lost her leg due to, what do you call it? And we knew this was going to happen, and before the operation, her whole leg was frozen and then when it was frozen, that's when they cut the leg off. And so fortunately we've progressed health-wise since those days. And then I remember her then subsequently with a wooden leg. The other thing I can remember about her is that my grandfather, he used to have to sleep in, I think it was a garage or a shed at the bottom of the section. She wouldn't have him sleeping in the same house. So things were grim in those days. A bit about myself. I've just had an 80th birthday. I'm married to my wife Jo. I've got one of my brothers here is Ross. I was born down in Invercargill, went to university, did an engineering degree, had an engineering business in Timaru, and we've got 4 children. After we were married, we went over to Adelaide, which was where we had our first child, which was a really good idea, because the child that was born in Australia is the only one that's now in New Zealand. 3 more children born in New Zealand, the blighters have all gone to Australia. That's a bit about me.
Oh, you want to talk about yourself, Joan? Say what Dan's forgotten, so. Okay, now the one who's born Adelaide beside me, you want to tell you something about yourself, David, please? Sure.
Hi everyone, my name's David Wensley, eldest son of Lance and Joan. I'll tell a story about my grandfather, so Dad's dad. We used to go and visit Grandpa and Grandma down in Invercargill, and he had this tree out the back, sort of behind his work shed, and it was this magic tree, and any time any of the grandkids would come down there, and he'd obviously know, and he had these lollies, and the lollies would be spread under the tree, and apparently there was this magic dwarf called Grumpy. Grumpy was up the tree dropping the lollies down, and so we'd all rush out there and try and find Grumpy. Never could see Grumpy, but anyway, we enjoyed seeing getting the lollies down on the ground. So that was my grandpa. Unfortunately, my grandpa died, I remember, on my 18th birthday, and he was pretty young. I guess he had 67, and he died from chopping wood. So that was the last breath, chopping the wood. That was it. And so probably a pretty good way to go in some ways. But so that was Grandpa. I'm married to Juliet. In some ways, all of our family probably inherited from both our mum and our dad some maths ability. Somehow we seem to be okay at that, and we probably got into finance or business in some way. That was my kind of career. I worked overseas for a little bit in New York and in Singapore, and then back here in New Zealand for a while now. My other brother involved in finance over in Sydney, and another brother over there in Sydney, and a sister who's over in Perth. Wife and I, Juliet and I, have 4 kids too, and just seeing the light at the end of the tunnel as the first 2 have kind of left, go to university. Oldest son Josh is studying up in Auckland, and my daughter Christy's just left behind too, and she's flatting for the first time. So I've got 2 others left living with us.
I just mentioned something, it is on the sheet of attendees, but I like it when people preserve a name Lumsden. And Lance's father was called John or Jack Wensley, but his name was actually Joseph John Lumsden Wensley. I just thought I'd mention that. Now, the next one in the family is, we've got 2 daughters here today of Lance's younger brother, the middle one of the Wensleys, who was Mark Lumsden Wensley. So first of all, there's Angela Lameliti, who's come all the way from Auckland.
Thank you, Alan. Hi, everybody. I'm Angela Lameliti Wensley, and I'm the daughter of Mark Lumsden Wensley, who was the middle son of Joseph John Lumsden, who was Gladys's son. So I'm David's first cousin, and my uncles and aunts are here, and many of my second cousins, and seemingly I think we've established that our grandparents, or my grandpa was the first cousin of many grandparents of other people in this room. It's quite extraordinary. I live in Auckland, I'm married, I have 2 teenage children, I'm a nurse, I work in adult haematology and bone marrow transplants at Auckland Hospital. My Lumsden memories are of being the person in the green and gingham dress in the clock at the first Lumsden family reunion. I was delighted about that. I remember Grandma Wensley spending ages bizarrely curling my hair. You'll remember that, Raven. She had it tied up in wet tea towels and getting me all ringleted for my moment in the clock. So I've been discussing over at the photo board with other family members, so we're obviously all about the same age, that we were all on that float together. If anyone's interested in having a look at these photos later, you can't see me in the photos, we're on the inside of the clock, and a lot of you guys are sitting around the outside, but there's a photo over there with me sitting front and centre in the family group. I'm representing my siblings, my sister Claire. We have 2 brothers, Nigel, who lives in Zurich, and Jordan, who lives in the UK. They're both computer geeks. Don't know where that came from really. And really interested actually to find out connections with some of you people, because I've been hearing people talk about enjoying going to see Auntie Anne and Uncle Lou, as did I. So I'm going to have to work all this out, like who's who and where our paths might have crossed, apart from obviously on the Lumsden float. Okay, good to meet you all, and thank you, Ellen, for arranging this. Great.
Claire, you're next.
I did it for us, but can I also add, Ellen, actually, David, the grumpy from the grumpy tree. He was, Grandpa's grumpy tree, the grumpy who lived in that tree. He actually went to the garage, which is why we couldn't find him. Now, this is what I was told. And I used to hunt for that thing for hours in that garage. I never did see him, but usually I've just missed him by a whisker.
Okay, Ross, you're next.
Geez, I didn't think you'd get to me with such a big list, so I didn't bother preparing anything. So I wrote a few quick notes. And one of the things, I'm Ross, Lance's youngest brother, and Angela's father was my next oldest brother, Mark. So just going back on a couple of things, the Wensleys, the Wensley that married Gladys Lumsden, lived in Crinn Street. And 2 nights ago, my lovely wife Raven here and I went there for a meal to Crinn Street to a restaurant, which is just over the road from where they all used to live. And the old fella, my grandfather, Wensley, Lance, had lived in the shed at the back. But part of the reason he lived in the shed was he was a share broker accountant, and he went blind in his early 50s. And what is there to do if you're blind in your early 50s back in those days but drink? So that's obviously why he was banned for the shed. So when we went out on Tuesday night, I didn't drink at all. I didn't drink a drop. Oh, I might have one glass. But it was our 50th wedding anniversary, so that's a bit of a fluke that we've been married 50 years. So moving on from that, the clock was mentioned, and it's Ethel. And is Ethel the daughter of George Allen or the sister of George Lumsden? Auntie Effie that donated the clock.
You're talking about Effie.
Effie, yeah.
There's a photograph of great Aunt Effie there.
Right.
Some people remember. Lance is old enough to remember great Aunt Effie in the Cargill.
I know where she lived.
She lived in George Lumsden's, her father's house.
Yeah.
And so did, for a little while, Ray Lumsden, who's not
right.
here.
So talking about those houses, they were right where Pack and Save is in Invercargill now, and Thomas, the son of George, his house was virtually opposite the town hall, which is the Pack and Save car park. So we were in and out of there all the time. So often think about that. But talking about the clock that was donated by Effie, it's on the Invercargill's two main streets, Tay and D Street, and where they join there's a soldier standing on the top of an enormous big monument thing, and that clock is the Lumsden clock. And my office is on the 4th floor, and I look out at the clock and straight down Tay Street, so it's a bit hard to get away from it. But also just there, by the clock on that block, is the building on D Street where George Lumsden had his jeweller shop, and then round the corner on Tay Street, only sort of 200 metres away, is the shop where Thomas Lumsden had his jeweller shop. Both those buildings are going to be demolished for the new development in Invercargill, which has been done by another relative of ours, cousins of Lance and I and Lloyd, are the Richardsons, and their daughter Jocelyn now runs the company, and they're developing a whole block. In actual fact, I only found out day before yesterday, they haven't actually bought the George Lumsden building the one beside, the only one in the block they don't own yet, because the people are hardball for getting paid. So then the other interesting thing today was the Smellies from a Tautau, and I haven't just caught up exactly with them. I'm pretty sure they bought my grandmother on my other side, her shop in Yarra Street. Some of you might remember that. So then the Lumsden town talked about it being named after George Lumsden. Does everybody here know how that happened? You do?
I think so.
About the town wanting to change the name, asking George, going to Wellington, sending him a letter back saying you can name it whatever you like, signed George Lumsden, and they called it Lumsden. Crazy, eh?
The newspaper clipping down there with it in sort of cartoon form of how it was done.
Oh, is that right?
Table down there, table.
And then the other thing, there's photos, I haven't seen them, but the joker on the float with the whiskers is me. Thanks very much.
Want to say anything, Raven?
Oh. Well, Joan didn't, so why should I?
Being different.
No, well, Ross and I have been married for 50 years. We have 3 children. Rachel, our eldest daughter, is a GP in Dunedin. Julie, our second daughter, she works for Alliance, selling meat all over the world. And Gregory, our youngest son, who was 9 years later than the girls. I always said it took a long time to make a boy. He's a project manager in Queenstown. And we have 6 beautiful grandchildren, aging from 14 to 1. So life is good. Thank you.
Right, so that's the end of Uncle John's family. The next family is my mother's younger brother, who was called Lewis, or Louis Wensley. Lou Wensley named after his father, who was Gladys's husband. And we've got representatives here today from Uncle Lou and Auntie Anne's family. Go through them in order. The eldest daughter is Hester. Would you like to speak, Hester, please?
Hi everyone. So my mum and dad were Anne and Louis Wensley, and we always lived in Motueka, right at the top of the South Island. We hardly had anything to do with anyone else because it was so far away. But I do remember my parents talking about the Smelly family and the McNasty family. So that was an interesting context. I have sisters here and a brother. So do you want to stand up? My sisters. So this is Bronwyn and Lloyd and Dana at the back. So that's the immediate family here, and apologies from Cynthia, who was in Auckland, and Winston, who was in Taupo. So there were 6 of us. And we had strong memories and fun with Cheryl's family and Marilyn's family. And I'm really sorry I couldn't have been at her funeral.
So also the cousins on the other side, with Lance and his children, and Ross and his family. That was always a lot of fun. And my boys I've got one boy here who's Sebastian, who's doing the filming, and I don't know whether he remembers, but I remember, Peter, you introduced him to air rifles, I think, on your lifestyle blog. You might not remember that. And that was a real highlight for I just had the two boys at that stage. It was a real highlight for them. So I've got the two boys and the third boy who's here in Christchurch as well. And my husband, Rand, is standing at the back here. So, and we live in Christchurch, and we're involved in education, teachers. My husband's retired, I'm still working here in Christchurch, and that's all I want to say. Thank you.
I should explain that Hester and her siblings, as well as being second cousins of Marilyn and Cheryl's family, are also first cousins, because Hester and her siblings, their mother was Anne Holland, who was a brother of Harry Holland, who married Kathleen Lumsden. So they're double cousins. There's quite a few. That's why they've got close associations with that family as well. So next on the list, Rand. You want to say anything about yourself? Okay. Rand's a retired teacher. We'll move on to the next sibling. That's Lloyd Wensley from Nelson. He's here today.
Hi, I'm Lloyd Wensley, Hester's younger brother. I'm speaking for Chris and I. Chris is my wife, and we live in Nelson. Our family was brought up in Nelson, in the north of the South Island. We didn't really have a lot to do with the wider family and relations. We had a few strangers from the south come and visit us, and who are these strange relations we've got, but we didn't have a lot to do with the wider family. And I think we were poor off for that lack of experience with the wider family. I started to go down to Southland when I was at university, and I stayed a lot with Ross and Rowan, and I was really introduced to the wider family at that point, and become more widely appreciative of all these relations. I'd like to congratulate Ross and Rowan for their reaching 50 years of marriage. That's a pretty good effort. I'm sure it wasn't an effort, actually.
At times. At times.
Yeah, I understand that. I didn't even loan them a pen so I could write a speech. We have three children, and our youngest one is Peter Lumsden Wensley, so the Lumsden is in his name, to continue on that relationship. Chris and I went to England in about 2009, and we went to, is it Pitaween where the clock is? Pitaween, we visited the clock, the London clock. We searched it out in the museum and found it. And in that town, there was a fish and chip shop, which was labelled the best fish and chip shop in the world. And I can say without a word of a lie that in Nelson we've got fish and chips that are just as good, or better. Now the point of that is that I think we can be very grateful that our Lumsden ancestors and their other ancestors had the mental and physical fortitude to make that journey to New Zealand. And here we all are now, living in one of the best countries in the world. Pretty much
What about your other children? You only mentioned Peter.
Peter, I have our eldest daughter Sarah is married to Jason. They're in the film industry. And if you've got mental and physical fortitude, you can look up Deathgasm on as a film, and Guns Akimbo. They're just films that we've made, and they've got quite good popularity amongst that audience. Kurt is married to Sarah and Kurt. Sarah and Jason have a son, and Kurt and Erica, they've got a daughter. Kurt and Erica in Wellington, and he's a runway and power systems engineer for Airways, and Peter lives in Nelson with us.
Moving down in the order, next is B. Bronwyn Hardake.
Kia ora everybody. So I'm from Christchurch. My husband Brian's here, and Martine and delightful Eric are in there in the kitchen. I guess I'm reflecting on this wider family that started with the migration to this tiny little island in the South Pacific, and how we've all grown into this big family in this country, and they came for the opportunities that New Zealand offered. I unfortunately had 3 children who are choosing the other side of the world and doing the reverse. So I kind of think, is it time that we look at a wider world and think, well, is there more out there than just in New Zealand? I don't know. I'm happy here. But this is what our ancestors did. They came here for a better life. So I'm very proud of my children forging their life overseas, although we miss them terribly. Martine will be returning to Mexico with Eric in a few weeks, and Vincent, my younger son, is a classical conductor, and he's coming to have a bit of a time here in New Zealand on a contract, and Jackson is going to produce our first grandson in April in New York. So we're excited with the life that they've got there. We would be excited if they came back, but that's not our choice. So it's wonderful to see you all, and I really appreciate the effort and time that Alan has put into this. I've been with him every week when he's gone through the anxiety about whether it's been a success, and look at it, it's fantastic. So thank you very much, Alan. Yeah.
Right, next is, unfortunately, the 2 other sisters, Cynthia and Vincent, can't be here, but the youngest of Auntie Anne and Uncle Lou's family, who is, I think, 6 years younger than the second youngest, is Dana. And Dana is 29 years younger than cousin Mark.
Well, as I walked by Ross, he said the most important one. I'm always the last because it's a family of 6. So thank you, Ross. Look, it's been really good to meet everybody here. I have to say I met a second cousin. We worked it out, didn't we? It took a long time. And to meet all you guys again that I haven't seen for so many years. I want to talk to you later. Like, just, it's been really good. First of all, I'm here with my husband, David McDonald. He's Canadian. My son, Gulliver McDonald, he doesn't know if he's Canadian or New Zealand, I guess. But born in New Zealand, lived in Canada. I was interested when you talked about the family history of the jewellers and the jewellery aspect of our family, because I know that was very important to my dad, Lou Wensley, and he was very proud of that. And also, my mum was strangely, crazily proud of my dad's family. She grew up in Invercargill, and she was just really proud of the Lumsden connection and the fact that George Lumsden was the mayor of Invercargill and, you know, a politician. And so she really was just kind of kept us all in touch as much as she could with the family. And I'm thankful to Alan for all the work he's done. I continually badger Alan to finish his book on George Lumsden because while we haven't kept going with the jewellery side of the family, I have kept going trying with the political side of the family. I'm elected into the Tasman District Council for the second term this year and last October, and what I find helpful actually is looking at Hansard reports of George Lumsden and the things he said in Parliament, because it's all there in black and white if you look at Hansard. And he did a kind of U-turn on one decision to do with provincial Southland and whether it was going, you know, what was going to happen around that time. quite controversial, quite interesting reading. So I really want Alan to finish off that book so I can learn more about George Lumsden. But, you know, it's great to meet you all again. And
would you like to say something about your careers you've had over the years?
all my careers. No, not really. I've just done lots of different things. And
Well, I like the story about you and Angela being nurses. There was at one stage three nurse Wensleys.
yeah, there was 3 nurse Wensleys
Same
at
hospital.
Green Lane Hospital at one time. My sister Cynthia, Angela, and myself.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so that was really cool. So that's me. Thanks.
David, would you like to give us some of your family history? Or?
I'm good. I'm good.
You good?
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you a little bit about
Isolated, so I'm good.
David was born in England, brought up in Canada, and lives partly in Canada and partly in New Zealand at the moment. And he's also worked in France when he and Jenna were first married. They lived in Paris. So they came back to New Zealand to have Gulliver, who was born in Dunedin. But he has also spent a long time living in Canada. Right, after that we've got young Gulliver. Would you like to say something, young Gulliver? Well, I'll tell you what Gulliver's name is then. Gulliver, John, Napoleon, Wensley, MacDonald. He didn't have room for Lumsden.
He'll be so pleased we won't have to sign cheques these days.
Okay, that's the end of all the descendants of Tom and Mary. It's unfortunate that one branch of the family couldn't be here today, and that is Leslie Carswell, who's 98 and a half. She would have liked to be here to represent her mother. Her mother was the youngest of all Tom and Mary's children, but ninth child, and she was called Irene, but we called her Auntie Rennie. She married a chap called Harold Rains, and they had Leslie, and they had Harold Rains, and they had Shirley Rains, and their youngest son was called Lumsden Rains. He's the only person in the whole family to have it as his only and first name. Unfortunately, his daughter Margot couldn't be here today. She's booked a holiday in the North Island some weeks ago. Her brother lives in the North Island, but anyhow, and Harold Rains' daughter, another apology, she's gone to see her brother and daughter in Australia. So it's just all bad timing, but they would have been here. And as I said, Shirley, who's 96, lives in Alexandria in bad health. And first one, Leslie Carswell, has written an autobiography, and it's on the table over there, so you can see a Lumsden family tree in the back of that, and all about Shirley and photographs of the family. Okay, we'll move on to another branch of the family. I mentioned on the family tree chart that most of the people there are descendant from Tom and Mary. Well, Tom Lumsden was one of 5 sons and 4 daughters of the original George and Christina Lumsden. And out of those 4 daughters of the original George and Christina, only one of them produced any offspring. And that was Margaret Retallick's grandmother. Where are you, Margaret? You're here somewhere. Margaret is representing the branch of Christina Cumming. Christina married Mr. Cumming and had 2 daughters, one of whom was called Christine, or known as Chrissy. And many people here of a generation above me were taught by Chrissy, who was a school teacher at Southland Girls High School. Chrissy had a younger daughter called Jean, and Jean Cumming married Bill Hooper, and they had a son and a daughter. So the only one of that generation, of the whole of the great-grandchildren of George, is here today, 88 years old. Would you be able to get up, I hope, and move over here so you can capture it on the film, please, Margaret? And her daughter, Catherine Retallick, is with her.
I never thought I'd be doing this, but it's very nice to be here
and to listen to your stories. And it's been an important part of my life, belonging to the Lumsden family. It's always been an important position to have. And I'm old enough to have come down to Invercargill for holidays. Every time there was a polio scare, my mother uprooted us and brought us to Invercargill, and we either stayed with Aunt Effie or we stayed with my Aunt Christine. And when I got old enough, I decided I wasn't given the name Christine in my list of names, so I decided to change it by default and put it in there because I wanted to identify with my great-grandmother and my grandmother and my aunt and so on.
And you put Lumsden in as well.
Pardon?
You put Lumsden in as well,
Yes. Well, that was always going in there because my brother had that, and he still has it, and he couldn't get down here for this today. But I just want to show you this. That's one of the things that I got, and I wear it a lot, and it's a brooch which my Aunt Effie gave to me many, many, many years ago. And I spent a lot of time in Invercargill, as I said, with the polio scares, and so it became like a second home to me. And one of the things I look back on is her and her little dog Mickey, and Mickey was most important in her life. If any of you remember Mickey, he was a holy terror of a dog, and everything had to be done just according to what he wanted, or it wasn't good enough. And then there was a parrot as well, and the parrot used to scare the living daylights out of me because my aunt would let it out of its cage and it would march along the table looking as you came in the door and just ready to attack at any moment. I was terrified of that thing, but I always opened the door very carefully before I went into the dining room in case he was there on the table and I'd have to walk past him. So, but Mickey was a different story. I used to like going for walks with Mickey. And I learnt a lot from Aunt Eve. She was a very alert, intelligent woman, and she had her finger on every pie and knew exactly what was going on. And you couldn't pull the wool over her eyes. She was a very smart cookie. But she was something very lovable about her too, and I look back on those years that I spent in her company, and she has been a very important part of my life. And I would like to think that more people knew her as closely as what I did, because she was a gem. And you don't hear so much about her. But she never married, but she ruled the family with a rod of iron. And everyone was very careful how they approached her, I can tell you. And the other part of the family, when my mother went to live in Christchurch, she kept in touch with her family, and I remember the Wensley family in particular. And she used to take me every week to go to the place that you were talking about before. Can't remember the name of the road.
Hatherley family.
Yeah. Yes. We used to go to the Hatherleys once a week on the back of Mum's bicycle. And she, my great joy there was playing with the doll's house that was out on the front porch. I used to think that was absolutely wonderful. So I had some happy memories of that house too. And I don't know that there's anything else I can tell you.
Well, you can tell us about what work you did in your life.
Me?
You're now retired.
I was a school teacher for years, and then I brought up 3 daughters, 2 of whom are here today, and I was a farmer's wife, and
Where did you
Angley. Yes, we farmed up wherever for many years, and in our old age we decided we were going for grapes and olives, so we grew grapes and olives until my husband died, and I kept it going for a few years after that, and then it was time to sell out and move on. So I've done that.
So do you live in Christchurch now? Do you live in Christchurch?
No, Raniora. I'm in a retirement village now. I had a stroke, so I'm not allowed to live alone any longer. And at the end of my life, I went into the church as a deacon in the Anglican church, and I still have kept that going. But that's me.
Can I just say something? Chrissy Cummings started teaching at Girls High the year my mother went to Girls High in Invercargill. She was still there when I was at Girls High in the 1950s. Just something, when she's nobody about Chrissy, I could just remember Mother saying she started teaching high school the day my mother went.
I was just going to mention Yes, sure, because David can mention to great, thanks.
I'd just like to say one further thing. With my mother, Betty, Irie and Claire, there was also Muriel. Unfortunately, I thought her June's son was going to be here today and speak, but he's not, so I think we should have just mentioned the family. There was June and Russell were George's were the son and daughter. Russell died quite a few years ago, I think. June died in America. I met one of June's sons in America there about 5 years ago when I was over there. She'd been visiting here. But it's just another one of, I think it should be mentioned here so you folk know that there was another sister related to us that was in the family. I don't think there's much else really to say about her, but just mention the family, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh, that's Sam. Sam was a me. June was married to Sam.
Yeah. Yeah, what you can say. So we get so you know a bit about the family.
She was an interesting lady, our cousin June. She had these two boys, and then she hopped off to overseas, and she went with Jan, Raylene Lumsden's older sister, and they travelled around. But June married a guy, Sam Jeffo, and he was either in the, I can never remember whether it was CIA or FBI or something.
I reckon he was on the CIA, but nobody had met him.
Yeah. But they finished up in Russia, and Deborah, the older daughter, was born in Russia, and when she was due to have Leah, she said she'd never have another baby in Russia, so she hopped off to Hong Kong, I think it was, I'm not quite sure where. But June was very close to my mum, Nairi, because mum was at home. Dad went off to war, and mum stayed home with grandma, and Muriel had June, and mum used to have to babysit her quite a bit, so they were quite close. So June used to come and visit us whenever she came over. But I know I always used to be a favourite of Danny Kaye when I was a child. I used to love him, his movies, and she knew him, and they used to socialise with him. But also too, Sam in the finish I believe he wrote something which he should not have done, and they had about 24 hours to get out of Russia, so they sort of a bit of an exciting story sort of under the table. Yeah, so I think that's it. Yeah.
And I just passed Grandma Lumsden's house in Invercargill. Has it been demolished?
Yes, it has, and
I thought it was,
there's
yeah.
a corner of...
You used to walk in the front door, nice high ceiling in the passageway. There were a couple of rooms there. There was an archway. Through the archway on the left was a billiard room. And what always intrigued me, on the wall were a couple of plaques on copper and enamel centres with dogs playing billiards. Where's Jane? Did your mother get them?
No.
I don't know what happened to them. They always intrigued me there. We went further down into the kitchen. Off the kitchen was a scullery, and there was 3 or 4 fruit puddings hanging on the wall. So that's just a couple of memories of my grandmother. Thank you.
Right, we're getting towards the end now. Thank you for remembering about Georgeson family. There's a photograph over there of Russell Georgeson, his family. They were in Lumsden in 1976. And the story about June, who was married in Moscow. I think she was the first New Zealander ever to marry there. And Sam Jaffe was actually a CBS international reporter. And because he had a Russian name and living in Russia, the Americans were a bit suspicious of him. And it was the FBI that accused him of being a spy. He wasn't spying for them. They thought he was spying for the Russians. It was the other way round. Anyhow, as Stephanie has said, daughter born in Moscow and daughter born in Hong Kong, and 2 sons born in New Zealand who are older. Unfortunately, neither of them, one said he was going to come, the other one lives in Blenheim, is working tomorrow morning, so he couldn't come back and forwards all the Monday from Blenheim. It's Ron Finnater and David Pennington, June's 2 eldest children. Anyhow, we still haven't quite finished yet. We've got...
Ellen,
we've
can
got...
I just say something about June? June's trade was a florist, and I went to Invercargill years ago and met, I think it's at Olive Dunn, that used to have a floral shop down there. And this was in her home, in her cottage garden, and I was talking, we went down as a garden group, and I said to her, my cousin was June Georgeson, and she said she was the best person she'd ever had to work with. And then when she was overseas in America, she was flown around to do weddings and all sorts of things. She was fantastic.
I visited June, 30 years ago now in Washington DC, where she had a big flourishing floristry business and catering for the government events, because it's the capital of the USA, and government departments and receptions and all that sort of thing. But going back to Invercargill, Olive Dunn, whom June Georgeson worked for before she went overseas, I've got a friend who's Violet Dunn, who was the niece of the florist, and she still has a garden, lives in the same house that her auntie lived in. So I visit that every year when I go to Invercargill, and I often mention to my friend, who knew June, because they both worked in the same shop when they were teenagers, actually. Yes. So we've still got, has Elizabeth come? Where's Elizabeth? Yes, yeah, here. Sorry, I met you when you came in. Sorry about that. I was, because you went by your mother, I lost track of you. Elizabeth's the one of 3 daughters of Margaret, if you'd like to speak on behalf of yourself, please.
Well, very briefly.
So I'm the eldest of 3 daughters. Grew up on a farm, a sheep. Went to university here in Christchurch, married an engineer, got around the North Island a bit. Decided to come back and put in grapes. And we do a wee bit of sheep farming as well. He works in here at the City Council as an engineer, water engineer. I do a bit of writing. I do a lot of work in the vineyard. It's really all work and no style, I have to tell you. Apart from that, I don't think there's anything else. My sister Catherine's down there. And the younger sister Eve. Thank you very much.
I'm the black sheep of the family, going good. My name's Catherine. I have 6 children, 5 alive. All of them are pretty good people, I reckon. So yeah, I just want to tell you a wee bit about. So I think it's quite fitting that I have Evie's ring, and I'm just thrilled that there are still jewellers in the family continuing that on. So what can I tell you? I also want to tell you that the Cummings had a really good relationship with. Where is it? Oh, there. Sorry. Had a really good relationship with Kate Shepherd, and she was a great family friend, her and her husband, and then that relationship carried on. We had an album with lots and lots of photos with them, and she was quite influential with Christine, who is the teacher, like me, and but I'm not going to get the MBE that she got, but it's all right, it's okay. And she really influenced her, and Christine was about the 10th woman or something in New Zealand to get a degree at university. So really, really quite cool stuff that, you know, we are, as women in this family line, we're sort of out there and do stuff. So yeah, 4 out of my 5 that are remaining have gone to uni. One's turned into a florist, don't know how she did that. The others are in finance. One's a teacher, he's down in Queenstown, and I have another son down there as well, and he's a builder, so he's going to come back. I was going to move and live down there, but I noticed when I went down, you know, there's something interesting. I'm training as a counsellor now, and when I went down there, I felt like when I got around Gore and Lumsden that I was coming home, and I really felt really comfortable because I was going to move down, and it's amazing how your DNA influences your love for a place, and I just felt like. And I had my grandson up on the train at Lumsden and took some photos of him, and Carter said to me, "Can you make this train move, Nams?" And I said, "Actually, no, not likely." But anyway, that's me done. Lovely to be here. Thank you so much, Ellen, and God bless you all, and amen. Hopefully this is
Just about at the end now, just to hark back to my interest in the family history. As I said, it started 52 and a half years ago, and the very first person, I don't know how I knew, lived in Christchurch was my grandmother's cousin, who was Catherine, who was just talking to her grandmother, Jean Hooper, and she was the first one of the Lumsden family I ever visited. Way back then, in 1968 it was, or 69 when I visited her probably. So that's, yeah, been going ever since then.